Long nights behind the wheel have a way of changing how you look at the world. Most people sleep through the hours I work. Streets feel wider, lights feel dimmer, faces start to blur together. You get this sense that the world's turned its back and left you behind in the dark. That's what it felt like that night, September 6th around midnight, just outside Peoria, Illinois. I'd been driving for nearly 10 hours, rideshare mostly, picking up folks from dive bars and dropping them into quiet neighborhoods where porch lights flickered like dying fireflies. I was burnt out. My legs were aching, and my hands had this nervous twitch. I'd already dozed off once near the I-474 loop. That's when I saw the Burger King sign blinking through a patch of fog, faint, red, like it was calling out to me. Now I know how dumb it was. How many times had I told myself never to stop at a near-empty fast food place that late? But exhaustion makes a man careless. You don't think, you just act. The parking lot was nearly empty, save for a beat-up sedan parked way off in the corner, like it didn't want to be seen. I remember checking the time, 12:12 a.m. I took it as a sign. Maybe I just needed a burger, a Coke, and 10 minutes off my feet before I hit the last leg home. When I stepped inside, the air hit me first, heavy with bleach but stale. Too clean. The kind of clean that covers something up, not maintains it. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, one of them stuttering in a corner like a dying star. The place looked deserted, but a man stood behind the counter. Tall, pale, mid-40s maybe, eyes that didn't blink. I swear he was staring before I even pushed the door open. "Still open?" I asked, rubbing my eyes. He didn't smile. "Only from register 4, he said, monotone. I glanced at the counter. Only one of the registers was lit, glowing this faint red. 1 through 3 were dark. Joking, I chuckled. "All right, that the lucky one?" He didn't answer, just stared. I figured he was just weird or overworked like me. I stepped forward and started to order. "I'll take a double bacon king with..." "Yeah, you sure you want to stay?" he asked, cutting me off. His voice was calm, but low, almost heavy. I blinked at him. "What? You can take it to go. Just don't sit down. Not tonight." That's when I noticed the dining area. The chairs were all out of place, some stacked, some upside down, one toppled on its side. Every table was clean, except one. The far back left booth. A tray sat there, fries untouched, burger still wrapped, soda half melted. "Someone forget their food?" I asked casually, but I could already feel a cold weight tightening in my gut. He didn't reply. Instead, a creak came from the back. The kitchen door opened slowly and a second man stepped out. Bigger, thicker build, hair disheveled, no uniform. There was something smeared on his sleeve. Dark, greasy. Maybe ketchup, maybe not. He leaned into the first guy, whispered something too low for me to catch, but I did hear one word. He saw. I should have walked out right then. Something about that word, saw, put a current through my chest. It wasn't said like he saw the menu or he saw the time. It was darker, like I'd witnessed something I wasn't supposed to. The second guy didn't look like an employee, didn't carry himself like one either. His eyes were bloodshot, his shirt stained, buttons askew. He kept staring at me like he was measuring me, deciding something. "Actually, I'll just grab a bottle of water and head out," I said, backing toward the drink coolers. The second guy's voice came out rough and low. "The back. No cooler. Fountain only. You gotta get it from," I blinked. "Nah, I'm good, just remembered I have water in the car." They both just watched me. The tension in the room thickened and I started scanning the place, looking for exits, paths, options. I noticed something I hadn't before. The emergency exit across the dining area glowed dimly green. I started stepping that way, slowly, pretending I was heading to the soda machine. Then, behind me, I heard a soft click. I froze. I turned, pretending it was nothing, but I knew what that sound was. The front door had just locked. I forced a smile. Did you guys just lock the door? The first man didn't say anything. The second man's hand disappeared under the counter. I felt my heart kick up like a drum solo in my chest. Cool, I muttered. Just getting some water. I took a cup and moved slowly, my hand shaking as I filled it halfway. But my eyes were locked on the emergency exit. That was the only way out now. I threw the cup hard at the floor, sending water and ice scattering across the tiles. The men flinched. That was enough. I ran, full sprint, slipping once on a patch of grease. I stumbled past the cluttered booth, the cold food tray still untouched, and lunged at the emergency bar. It didn't budge. It was bolted shut. I turned. Only the pale man was behind the counter. The big guy was gone. Panic filled my throat like a scream I couldn't let out. I ducked low, grabbing the tray off the table and hurling it toward the back hallway, the one near the kitchen. Then I ran the other way, toward a small employee corridor I'd spotted by the bathroom signs. Footsteps thundered behind me. My legs carried me faster than I thought I could move. I burst through the back door, nearly crashing into a dumpster. Outside. Garbage alley. The stench of grease and old meat was overwhelming. But I was out. And then I heard it. The soft rumble of a car engine starting. I turned. That same sedan from earlier rolled past the alley entrance. No headlights. Just drifting. In the front seat, the pale man. In the back seat, the bigger man, holding something. Wrapped. Plastic. I don't remember deciding to run. I just did. I sprinted across the lot toward the gas station next door. Lit. Safe. A trucker was fueling up. I waved him down, screaming something. I don't remember what. The cops showed up 20 minutes later. By then, the adrenaline had left me shaky and sick. My heart was still thumping in my ears like it didn't want to stop. I sat on the curb outside the gas station, the overhead lights buzzing like the ones in that Burger King. When the cruiser pulled into the lot, I ran toward them, trying to explain everything at once. They kept asking me to slow down. One officer, Simmons, I think, walked over to the restaurant while the other stayed with me. 5 minutes later, Simmons came back. Place is locked up. Looks like it's been closed since 10. No one inside. No lights. Nothing looks out of place. I stood up. One in the back. What are you talking about? I was just in there. 2 guys, one behind the counter. He frowned. Sir, it's spotless. You sure it was this location? I pulled out my phone, showed them the pin, showed the time, showed the cup still sitting in my car. Everything. The kicker, there was no receipt in the system. Nothing at 12:12 a.m. But Simmons confirmed the register log had a record of a new order punched in at exactly that time. Just no items, no name, no trace. They humored me, took a statement, promised to look into it. But I could tell by their tone, they didn't believe a damn word. Who would? I went home, locked every door, and stayed off the roads for a week. Then the texts started. The first message came 5 days later. Should have taken it to go. It popped up at 2:14 a.m. from an unknown number. No name, no profile pic, just those 6 words. I sat upright in bed, heart instantly racing. I didn't respond. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction, but I also didn't sleep for the rest of the night. My mind spun over every possible explanation. Was it a prank? Some twisted coincidence? Had one of those guys somehow gotten my number from the order system? Except, there was no order in the system. That's what gnawed at me the most. That and the fact the message came from an untraceable number. I checked every app I'd ever signed up with. Nothing. No connections. It was like this message came from nowhere. A week passed. Then another message. Don't forget the special tonight. Register 4. This time I threw my phone across the room. I went back to the police, told them about the texts. They offered to file a follow-up report but gave the same answer. Without a threat or traceable number, there's not much we can do. So I changed my number, deleted all food delivery apps, even stopped driving rideshare. But the messages kept coming. New number, same tone. Booth still open, Brendan. That one made me nauseous. How did they know my name? I started scanning parking lots before getting out of my car, looked twice at every sedan, avoided fast food joints altogether. My life became a routine of paranoia. My sleep was broken into chunks. Every creak in the night pulled me from bed. I bought blackout curtains, installed cameras, got a dog. Still, nothing felt secure. It wasn't just the messages. It was the feeling that something had shifted that night. Like I'd stumbled into a reality I wasn't supposed to see, and now it wouldn't let me go. But the worst came nearly 2 months later. I was at the grocery store grabbing late-night essentials. It was just after 10 p.m. The place was mostly empty. I went through self-checkout and was walking toward the exit when I saw someone. Tall, pale, dark uniform. He was standing just outside the automatic doors, hands in his pockets, staring right at me. No blinking. Just like before. I turned around, left through the back, called my brother and drove straight to his place. I didn't even sleep that night. Just watched the street through his blinds while gripping a baseball bat. The texts stopped for a while after that. Weeks. I almost convinced myself it was over. That maybe it was some weird psychological break and I'd imagined half of it. But deep down, I knew the truth. 3 months later, I moved to a new city, different state, new phone, new job, new everything. It helped. For a while. The paranoia eased. I even started driving again, only during daylight and never past 9 p.m. But still, I never stopped looking over my shoulder. I never went inside fast food restaurants, ever. Then, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, I got a letter. No return address, no stamp, just tucked into my apartment mailbox like it belonged there. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed. You made it out, but not everyone does. Next time, don't look so long. That was it. No name, no explanation. I sat at my kitchen table, paper trembling in my hands. Outside, a car passed slowly through the complex lot. I didn't need to look up to know the taillights weren't on. I stayed inside for the next 3 days. Even now, nearly a year later, I live with that night like a scar just under the surface. I don't know who those men were. I don't know what I walked into or why they let me go. I've run the scene through my head hundreds of times. What would have happened if I'd sat in that booth? What if I'd gone into the back for the water? I try not to dwell on it, but sometimes when I close my eyes, I see that tray. The cold fries, the untouched burger, the soda sweating in silence. And the booth? Still open, I bet. We live in a world where routine makes us feel safe. Fast food at midnight, a long drive home, an empty parking lot. But sometimes reality slips, just for a moment, and we see the things we're not meant to. In those moments, trust your instincts. Leave the burger, ignore the register, walk away, because curiosity might feed the mind, but it can also get you killed. You don't really understand how long trauma lingers until you try to do something normal again, like driving at night. 3 months had passed since the hit and run. I was coming home from a late shoot on Route 619 when a white SUV blew through a red light and sent my Honda spiraling off the road. I remember the headlights, the spin, the glass shattering in my hair, and then nothing. The driver never stopped, not even a skid mark, just gone. I walked away with a concussion and a shattered wrist, but the mental damage, that's been harder to fix. Ever since, I'd avoided night drives like my life depended on it. I wouldn't even take side streets after dark. But on the night of May 24th, I made an exception. My younger sister Beth called me around 9. Their oven had shorted out mid-dinner and she sounded exhausted, half laughing through frustration. I didn't want her ordering some cheap delivery again. Against my better judgment, I offered to go pick something up for her and drop it off. That meant driving at night, and I did it anyway. It was just after 10 when I pulled onto Canton Road in Akron. I kept the radio off and gripped the wheel tight. Every intersection made my chest tighten. My breath came in shallow, uneven rhythms. I turned into a half-empty Burger King lot, parked just before the drive-through speaker. I hadn't been to this location in years, but it looked the same. A little more run down. One of the lights in the menu board flickered like it was about to die. I reached the speaker. "Hi, welcome to Burger King. Go ahead when you're ready." The voice caught me off guard. Male, deep, calm, but in a way that felt wrong. Off. Like someone reciting a line they'd practiced 100 times too many. "Hi. Yeah. Can I get a chicken sandwich combo? Onion rings instead of fries and a small Sprite?" A long pause. Then, "Pull up to window 3. I blinked. "Don't you mean window 1? Silence again. Then, window 3. I paused, my hand hovering over the gear shift. It was a standard layout. There were only 2 windows, one for payment, one for food. I'd been to enough of these to know. Still, I rolled forward slowly. As I curved around the building, I noticed something wedged between the back alley and the rear hallway. A third window, narrow, dirty, like it had been forgotten by time. A cracked light buzzed above it. No one stood inside. The glass was tinted, but I could barely make out movement behind it. My gut told me to leave. Right then, just drive away. My phone buzzed. A text from Beth. "You okay? It's taking long." I replied with a shaky hand. "Yeah, weird setup here." Then I pulled up to window 3. The window didn't open. Instead, from a narrow slot below the glass, a brown paper bag dropped onto the small metal tray. No interaction, no voice, no face. Just the bag, shoved through like it didn't matter who picked it up. I hesitated before rolling down my window. The air coming out of that slot was cold, stale, like the inside of an abandoned freezer. I reached for the bag, still watching the window. The lights behind the glass flickered, revealing a figure, tall, unmoving, deep in the hallway, not doing anything, just watching. I called out, "Hello, is this mine?" No answer. I leaned out a little further, squinting into the window's dark interior. That figure wasn't moving, not walking, not shifting, just standing there. The longer I stared, the less human it felt. A hard chill passed through me. I pulled back and closed the window fast. As I placed the bag in the passenger seat, something stopped me cold. My name was on it. Mallory, written in thin, shaky black ink, but I hadn't given them my name. Not at the speaker, not online. I hadn't even used a card yet. I stared at it frozen. Then I pulled into an empty spot by the side fence just to breathe. My fingers trembled as I opened the bag. Inside wasn't food. It was a small printed photo. A photo of me, in my kitchen, washing dishes, looking out the window, taken from outside. I dropped the bag like it was on fire. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the car into gear. Then I saw her. Someone was standing in front of my car. She was the same redhead I'd seen inside earlier. Small build, Burger King uniform. But something was wrong. Her body was still. Too still. Her face was smiling. But the eyes, those blank, glassy eyes, weren't human. They didn't move. Didn't blink. I tapped the horn once. She didn't flinch. I revved slightly, hoping she'd step aside. But she didn't move. Her feet were planted like roots. My breath turned sharp, quick. I didn't wait. I slammed the car into reverse, tires screaming as I backed out crooked, scraping against the curb. I took the far side exit, looking in my rear view as I turned out of the lot. She was gone. No redhead. No one at the window. The entire Burger King looked abandoned. Lights off. Windows dark. Like it hadn't been open in hours. I made it home in 23 minutes, ran inside, locked every door. My chest was heaving. I couldn't speak. I just slid down my hallway wall and cried without knowing why. At 2:09 a.m., I opened my phone and checked my home security app. Motion detected, 9:41 p.m. I tapped the clip. A tall figure walked past my kitchen window, stopped, faced the camera, and smiled. The next morning, I filed a report, took everything to the local police, photo, bag, the security footage. They took it seriously at first, promised to follow up. But a week later, I got a call. The Canton Road Burger King had no active incident report, no employees matching the description, no redhead on staff. Their cameras were reportedly down that week due to maintenance. And, according to the manager, there is no third window. He said it plainly. Said there never had been. I argued, pushed. Even drove by a few days later to take photos. There was no third window anymore, just a blank wall. I started sleeping with the lights on. 3 weeks later, the first envelope showed up. No return address, no note, just a single photo. Me, reading on the couch, shot through my living room window. Every week since, a new one arrives. Different window, different time. Always me, always alone. At some point, fear stops being loud. It becomes quiet, like background noise you learn to live with. That's where I am now. I haven't driven at night since that Burger King visit. My sister understands. I've upped security around the house, new cameras, motion lights, reinforced doors. But none of that really helps. They still get the photos, still get me. I haven't seen the redhead again, or the man behind the speaker, or the figure in the hall. But I know they're out there, waiting, watching. Sometimes I still hear the voice in my sleep. Window 3. I don't know what I walked into that night. A trap? A game? A ritual? But I know this. The fear isn't just what you see. It's knowing you've been seen back. When your instincts scream, listen. Don't ignore that tightening in your gut, that moment of hesitation. Not everything strange is just in your head. Sometimes it's a warning, because there are places in this world where things slip through the cracks, where the routine becomes unfamiliar, and the familiar becomes dangerous. And sometimes, the price of curiosity is being watched forever. I didn't come to Roanoke for a fresh start. I came here because I had nowhere else to go. Ohio had turned into a memory I wanted to burn. I left behind my stepfather's twisted definition of parenting and a mother who chose silence every time he knocked on my door at night. It took me a full year to save enough, but the moment I had the cash and courage, I packed a duffel and boarded a Greyhound headed south. I didn't even say goodbye. Now, I rent a studio apartment above a pawn shop that smells like melted plastic and cigarettes. The walls are thin, the hot water is moody, and the heater sounds like it's dying every morning, but it's mine. My name's on the lease. No one checks my door in the middle of the night. No one tells me when I can leave my room. That's a kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. To make ends meet, I took a job at the Burger King on Salem Boulevard, working mostly closing shifts. It wasn't glamorous. Frying grease, wiping trays, mopping after drunk high schoolers. But it was quiet. Roanoke wasn't like the city. People kept to themselves. Nights passed slowly. For the first time, I thought maybe I'd made the right choice. Until he started showing up. The first time I saw him was February 17th. He walked in just before 8:45 p.m. Older guy, maybe mid-50s. Corduroy jacket, navy knit cap pulled low over his ears. He ordered large fries, no salt, medium Coke. Didn't ask for anything else. No smile, barely any eye contact. He sat down at table 9 near the far window and ate in silence. Didn't seem like anything more than a quiet regular. But then he came back, the next night, and the one after. Same time, same food, same table. And he watched me. Not obviously, not like staring. It was more subtle than that. The way he angled his head, how he never touched his drink until I walked by, how he never blinked when our eyes met. I mentioned it to Kevin, another closer college kid with a heart too soft for this job. He tried to brush it off. Could be nothing, he said. Just some weird old dude. Yeah, I nodded. But he gives me that crawling feeling like I forgot to lock a door. Kevin looked over at table 9 and winced. Should tell management. Yeah, okay. Dude gives me the creeps, honestly. I didn't. I'd spent too many years being told I was overreacting. I didn't want to be that girl again. The one who imagined things. So I kept quiet, even when his presence started feeling like a shadow that stretched just a little too far. On February 22nd, his 6th visit, I went to clean table 9 after he left. The tray was there, fries half-eaten, Coke barely touched. And under the napkin dispenser, folded neatly, was a note. You walk home too late. Salem Street isn't safe. No name, no signature, just that. I felt my chest tighten. I looked around the restaurant, but Kevin had already ducked into the back for end-of-night restocking. The lobby was empty. I reread the note. How did he know I walked? And more terrifying, how did he know when? I showed the note to our assistant manager. She barely glanced at it before sighing. Could be a prank. Maybe a customer messing around. Just tell Kevin to walk you home tonight, okay? Kevin had left early that night, sick grandmother or something. So I walked alone. And the entire way, I felt eyes that I couldn't find. After that night, things shifted. The man came in every single night after that, like clockwork. 8:42 p.m., large fries, no salt, medium Coke. Sat at table 9, ate slowly, quietly, watched me. He never said a word. Not to me, not to Kevin, not to anyone. And I started to notice the smaller things. The way the back door chime would beep without anyone walking through. The way the tray return slot near his table was always clean. Too clean, like someone wiped it twice. The way I'd turn to grab more cups and feel something behind me, only to find nothing there. And yet, no one else seemed to see it. On March the 1st, I came home from work and noticed something I'll never forget. My apartment door was unlocked, just slightly ajar. The bolt still retracted, the latch hanging there like a silent accusation. I hadn't forgotten to lock it. I lock my door out of muscle memory. Trauma makes sure of that. I stepped inside cautiously. Nothing looked broken, nothing missing, but my curtains were drawn, and I never leave my curtains closed. I need to see the street, see the exits. It's a rule I live by. But they were shut tight, like someone had been in there and didn't want anyone outside looking in. I didn't call the cops. What would I even say? I think someone maybe stood in my apartment but didn't steal anything. They'd ask about cameras. I didn't have any. Just cheap blinds and 2 deadbolts. That was it. The next night, I begged Kevin to stay until close. At 9:30, I was sweeping behind the counter when I looked up and noticed something strange. Table 9 was empty, but the tray was still there. Food untouched. Coke still full. He hadn't left through the front. The chime hadn't beeped. Kevin hadn't seen him leave. No backdoor alert either. He was just gone. Kevin walked me home that night. We didn't talk much. I think he finally felt what I had been feeling all week. That slow churning, stomach-clenching certainty that something was wrong. And still, I went back for one more shift. March 3rd, my last night. The one I still dream about. The night the boy walked in. I'd already made up my mind that March 3rd would be my last shift. I hadn't told Kevin yet, but I'd written my resignation and stuffed it in my apron pocket. It wasn't dramatic. I just couldn't keep pretending this was normal. I needed distance. From the building. From table 9. From whatever was happening around me that no one else seemed to see. That night started like the rest. Kevin was on Friar. I handled front counter and drive-through. We were closing early for maintenance, so by 8 p.m. the place was almost empty. I tried to keep busy, refilled the napkin dispensers, wiped down the soda machines twice, triple counted the till. At exactly 8:42 p.m. he came in, same guy, same clothes, the familiar rhythm. He didn't look at me right away, just ordered the usual in a voice just above a whisper. I handed him his tray and watched as he glided back to table 9. He sat, stared, ate slowly, deliberately, but something was different. His drink was sweating heavier than usual, condensation dripping down the side like it had been sitting out for hours. His fries didn't steam when he opened the carton. The tray looked stale, like it had been served long ago. I turned to Kevin and opened my mouth to say something, but I froze. A boy had just walked in, alone. 8, maybe 9 years old. Dark hoodie, hands shoved in the pockets. He looked lost and out of place. Our lobby had already been half shut down for cleaning. No adult came in with him. He didn't look scared, just confused. I leaned over the counter. "Hey, bud, you okay?" He blinked at me. "My uncle said I should wait here for the girl with the red hair." My stomach flipped. I glanced at Kevin, who looked just as confused. "Did your uncle drop you off here?" The kid nodded. "He said she'd know what to do." "Did he mean one of the employees?" The boy looked past me, his eyes locking onto something behind my shoulder, softly. "He said you'd be here." Then he reached into his hoodie and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Hands trembling, I took it. It was a typed note, clean, centered, emotionless. "I wanted you to know what it feels like, to be watched, to be followed, to be afraid." And beneath that was a photo, a blurry image of me, inside my apartment, taken from behind the curtain, not from the hallway, not through the peephole, from inside. "You," he said. I staggered backward, the blood draining from my face. Kevin rushed forward, asking what was wrong, but I couldn't even form the words. My heart was in my throat. I spun toward table 9. Empty. Tray still there. Drink untouched, fries stale. But the man was gone again. Kevin called the police. They arrived 10 minutes later, and by then I was outside, sitting on the curb, trying to breathe. I handed over the photo and the note. One officer walked inside to check the camera footage. The other stayed with me, asking questions. When the officer came back out, his face was unreadable. "There's no one matching your description on the footage," he said. "Not at 8:42, not ever. No man, no older male." Kevin stepped in. "But I saw him. He's been here every night. Sat at that same table." The officer shook his head. "Child. Camera shows no one at table 9 at all tonight. Only Erica and the they offered to escort me home. I declined. Leah picked me up instead. I didn't go back inside. I never would." I quit the next morning without stepping back in, left my resignation in an envelope taped to the employee entrance, and texted Kevin a short thank you. That was it. I moved out of my apartment the same week, paid cash to a landlord who didn't ask questions, changed my number, swore off social media, didn't even give Leah my new address. I just vanished, on purpose. For a while, things calmed. No notes, no photos, no sightings. Until March 5th. I was scrolling through the photo gallery on my phone, trying to clear out old receipts and screenshots, when I found something that made my blood run cold. A photo. Time stamped 8:42 p.m., March 5th. It showed me sitting on the edge of my bed, hair wet from a shower, scrolling on my phone. I didn't remember taking it. No mirror was involved, no timer set. It had been taken from the hallway, from the inside. I checked every door, every window, every lock, no signs of entry, nothing missing. But the curtains had been drawn, just like before. That night I bought blackout blinds, duct tape, and 2 motion sensors. I covered every webcam. I started sleeping with my phone flashlight on, facing the door. The police weren't any help. They said there was no sign of forced entry, nothing they could file a warrant over. They asked if I'd been under stress lately, if I'd ever had hallucinations before. I stopped answering their calls after that, but I didn't need proof. I knew what I saw, what I felt, and what I was being told. The final straw came 2 weeks later. Another photo, mailed to my new address. No return label. Postmarked from Roanoke. Inside the envelope, one image. Table 9. Shot from across the Burger King lobby. My face, blurred but unmistakable, reflected in the window as I wiped down the counter. The timestamp? February 10th. He'd been watching before I ever noticed him, before I even knew. It's been 5 months since I left Roanoke. I live farther south now. Small town, quiet. I pay cash for rent, keep the windows covered, and don't answer the door unless I see who's on the other side first. The place is plain. No photos, no wall art, nothing that might show up in the background if someone's watching again. And I know someone still is. Every couple of weeks a new envelope arrives. No return address. Inside, always one photo. Sometimes it's of me, on the sidewalk, at the laundromat, once even at the gas station 10 miles from town. Other times, it's that damn table again, table 9. But from different angles, like whoever's taking them wants me to see every inch of it, like they want me to remember. And I do. I remember how it felt knowing I was being watched, long before I realized it. How my skin would prickle without a sound. How my stomach would twist before anything happened, like my body knew what my mind hadn't caught up to yet. The worst part? The silence. There are no more notes, no texts, no calls, just images. Clean, quiet images. And that silence has a voice of its own. Like whoever's behind this wants me to sit with it, to think about it, to fear it. I think about that kid, the boy who came into the restaurant that night. I wonder if he knew what he was doing, or if he was just being used. Like bait, like a delivery system. He had no fear in his eyes. That still haunts me. I've stopped going out at night completely. I don't trust crowds, and I don't linger near windows. Even inside my own place, I move room to room like someone's watching, because someone probably is. I keep tape over my phone's camera, and I haven't used FaceTime since March. I miss my old life. Not the part back in Ohio, not my stepfather's house, but the version of me that believed the world was safe enough to work a late shift and not question every quiet customer who came through the door. That girl's gone. In her place is someone sharper, quieter, less trusting. I never knew what he wanted, if it was about power or punishment or just the sick thrill of being invisible. I'll probably never know. But whoever he is, he taught me something I can't unlearn. Predators don't always hide in shadows. Sometimes they sit in well-lit rooms eating fries with no salt. They wait. They watch. And sometimes, no matter how loud you scream inside your own head, no one believes you. Because the camera didn't catch it. Because the system didn't register it. Because your trauma doesn't come with timestamps. But it happened. Every second of it. So now, when I feel that twinge in the air, when I know someone's watching, even if I can't prove it, I don't brush it off. I don't stay professional. I don't wait around for a manager to believe me. I leave. I trust my gut. Because I'd rather be wrong 100 times than live through that again. The last photo I got showed something different. Table 9, empty. But on the table, barely visible in the low-res image, sat a red envelope, sealed, addressed to me. I haven't received the actual envelope yet. I don't know if I ever will. But it's coming. I can feel it. Always trust your instincts, even when no one else does. Danger doesn't always show up in obvious ways. Sometimes the scariest people are the ones who never raise their voice, never make a scene, and never leave a trace. And just because no one else sees them doesn't mean they're not there. Returning to New Ulm felt like stepping into deep freeze, not just in temperature but in spirit. I left behind a marriage that had drained me of identity and self-worth. After my divorce, my ex-husband's friends shunned me. Legal fees swallowed my savings. I moved away, convinced I'd find something better. Instead, I found myself back in the only place I'd ever truly known. A quiet Midwestern town of 13,000 souls. Now, I lived in the house where I grew up, still filled with heavy memories and familiar creaks. I work remotely as a freelance editor, and my routine settled quickly into one predictable highlight. A Whopper and Diet Coke from the Burger King just 5 blocks away. It was always open late, always quiet, and the servers never pried. I liked that anonymity. It felt safe. I'd grab my order, sit in the corner booth by the window, and decompress. The first time I saw him, he was mopping near the soda fountain. Tall, mid-30s, pale skin. His name tag read Dale. He gave a polite nod when I walked past. No pushy conversation, no flirting. He didn't print his number or ask about my relationship status. He just existed in that space without seeming to need permission. I appreciated that. I needed someone who didn't cling. Over the next week or so, I noticed him more. Not because he said anything, but because I recognized a pattern. He would wander by as I ate, quietly wiping tables I hadn't even finished with. He'd ask innocuous questions, a small talk about how I like to arrange the sauces or what I edited, and then he'd slip away, leaving the plate cleared before I even stood. "Quiet suits you," he told me one night, voice low and calm while he wiped my table. "People are scared of it, but I think it's honest." A lot of it wasn't a question, more like a statement arranged in a way that forced me to respond. I laughed awkwardly and said, "I guess it just suits my current situation." He nodded, as if he already knew why. There was comfort in the routine, me arriving, ordering, him appearing nearby. Even comfort in the silence, but comfort turned thin fast. On December 29th, I got there later than usual, just before closing. I spotted Dale outside, smoking quietly by the dumpster. The hazy orange glow of the lot lights outlines him like a shadow misplaced. When I stepped inside, the familiar scene was gone. The register girl was new, perhaps a holiday temp, and behind the fryer was a tall, lanky cook I didn't recognize. The register clerk blinked at me when I asked about Dale. "Dale? You mean the guy with the gray jacket?" She shook her head. "Ma'am, there hasn't been anyone named Dale here since I started." My chest lurched. I couldn't let my voice shake, so I asked, 2 weeks. "Are you sure? I've seen him the last." She frowned. "Waiting on your order?" "No, ma'am. Never heard of him." She gestured toward the kitchen. "Are you?" I nodded, too uncertain to argue further. I grabbed my tray and left without finishing the fries, uncommon for me. When I glanced outside, Dale was gone. The lot dark and empty. I didn't go again for 3 days. On January 1st, a note slid under my front door. Typed in crisp black letters, no name. "Your face always changes when you see someone who doesn't lie to you. That's rare. You should know I notice it. I don't know how he got into the house. I rarely left the door unlocked. But the weight of the message carried the smell of his presence. I knew who it was. I skipped Burger King for a week, my after-work ritual shattered. I ordered through drive-thru once, but kept driving past the dining area altogether. I'd park and walk around the block twice before going inside, scanning the windows for a gray jacket or pale face that didn't belong. On January 7th, I forced myself to go in during daylight. I approached the manager, who seemed too eager to help. She told me he never worked there. "You mean the guy who walked in last month pretending to be part of the team?" she asked. Tears stung behind my eyes. Yes. Tall, pale, quiet. He cleaned, helped stock, stayed late. The manager shook her head slowly. "We had to ask him to leave twice last month, but there's no record. He never completed paperwork, never interviewed. No one by that name, period." She offered to review camera footage, but I felt intoxicated with unease. I didn't want corporate to see me, to replay his face over and over. I just wanted someone else to say, "We saw him too." No such luck. I left through the drive-thru exit, lights buzzing overhead, no gray jacket, no gaze. That night I bought a doorbell camera, started sleeping with lights on. I ripped out my front hedge so no one could hide behind it. I told myself I needed proof, evidence, but I was running on instinct, bare fingertips skimming danger I couldn't name. By the time I moved to Mankato, I didn't trust restaurants or windows. I kept my curtains closed, my meals at home. But I cannot erase who I became that month, a woman who had learned fear in silence. I may never see him again, but he taught me one thing I can't forget. I didn't sleep much the night after I spoke to the manager. I kept picturing Dale, if that was even his name, standing outside my house waiting for the lights to go out, watching for movement through the sheer curtains I hadn't replaced since moving back. I checked the door camera footage every hour like it was a prayer, a ritual of control. Nothing ever showed up, just snow, the occasional car headlights, the wind rattling the porch rail, but inside, it was like he'd left fingerprints behind in my mind. That space that used to belong to routine, dinner, a soda, 30 minutes of peace, was now filled with questions. How long had he been watching me? Why me? What exactly did he want? I called my mom that weekend, pretending it was just to catch up, but I think she heard the anxiety in my voice. I didn't tell her the whole story. How do you explain something like that without sounding paranoid? I just said, "There's a guy at the restaurant who made me uncomfortable." She said what moms say, "Be careful, maybe call the police," but I'd already tried that. A few days earlier, I filed a report giving the description, the note, the times I'd seen him. The officer was polite, but unconvinced. "Could be a drifter," he said. "We get a few this time of year. Someone looking to stay warm." But he pretended to work there, I told him. He knew things, like, about me. Did he ever threaten you, touch you, try to follow you home? No, I admitted, frustrated. But that's not the point. He sighed, probably tired of hearing vague fear dressed up as evidence. Again. Otherwise, just stay alert. Call us if he shows up, stay alert. That was the best they could give me. So I did. I watched shadows. I studied my routine. I changed the time I left the house, the grocery store I used, the way I walked home from the gym. But even when I couldn't see him, I felt him. That's what haunted me. The silence, the attention, that weird calm he wore like a uniform. I thought about something he once said to me, that first week at Burger King. Some people just don't need to speak much to understand a person. I had smiled then, thought it was poetic, almost kind. Now it felt like a warning I'd missed completely. January 10th, a Thursday, the coldest day of the year. I hadn't eaten all day. My stomach growled, and against my better judgment, I pulled into a McDonald's on the edge of town. I told myself it was harmless. Daylight, drive-through only, doors locked. I placed my order, paid, and pulled ahead to the pickup window. A man handed me my bag. Young, probably high school. Cheerful. But just behind him in the kitchen, I saw a flash of gray. A jacket. I froze. I didn't get a good look, just a shape, a posture. But the reaction in my gut was instant. I drove off without waiting for my drink, parked in a grocery store lot 3 blocks away, and tried not to hyperventilate. I didn't go home that night. I drove to a friend's apartment in Mankato and asked if I could crash on her couch. She didn't ask too many questions, just handed me a blanket and made popcorn. I didn't tell her what I saw. I didn't tell anyone. The next morning, I checked my phone. A notification from my door camera. 1:13 a.m., motion detected, front porch. I held my breath and tapped the video. There was no one in the frame, just the wind, the porch light, but in the corner, just barely visible in the far edge of the lens, the corner of a sleeve. Gray. I moved out of New Ulm the next week. No goodbye parties, no forwarding address. I canceled my freelance contracts, deleted social media, and started fresh under my maiden name. It's been 5 months now. I don't eat out anymore. Don't use delivery. I walk with my keys between my fingers and check every room when I come home, even closets I never use. And sometimes, when I look into mirrors too long, I get the feeling someone else is already in the reflection. Someone watching me from the other side, silent and patient. There's a part of your brain that never fully trusts peace once you've lost it. Even on good days now, when the coffee tastes right and the sun makes the curtains glow soft and yellow, I still flinch at the sound of someone walking upstairs too slowly. Still check the mirror twice, not for my reflection, but for his. I never saw Dale again, not directly, but things kept happening. Quiet things. In late January, 2 weeks after I moved to Mankato, a package arrived at my new apartment. No return address. Inside was a Burger King paper hat, folded neatly, clean, unworn. I laughed at first, a hollow sound, too sharp, tossed it in the trash and convinced myself it had been a prank. Maybe someone at the old apartment forwarded it. Maybe a mistake. But then a week later I found something worse. Taped to the inside of my hallway closet, inside, where I never put tape, was a receipt from the new Ulm Burger King. My order: a Whopper, small fry, and Diet Coke. December 14th, 7:44 p.m. The first night I saw Dale, I called the landlord, had him change the locks again. I bought a second deadbolt, a chain, and a wedge alarm for every door. But fear doesn't knock anymore. It seeps. I started attending a trauma support group on Thursdays. Nothing formal. Just 6 people and a counselor named Marcia who smells like peppermint and always wears sweaters with stitched birds. Most of the others talk about things that happened to them in childhood. Bad marriages, bad parents, violent nights. I never say Dale's name out loud. What do you even call him? He didn't break in. He didn't hurt me. He didn't threaten me. He just watched and made me aware of how little control I ever really had. One Thursday after group, Marcia handed me a paper she'd printed. A short poem about hypervigilance, about how the mind rewrites reality when it's been pushed past safety too many times. I stared at it, holding back tears I didn't know were building. She put a hand on mine. "You're not crazy, Leah," she said gently. "But you also deserve a life where you don't have to study every stranger's shoes or their eyes or how they hold a mop." I nodded. Didn't speak. Couldn't. But I held on to her words. It's July now. My apartment is different. Lighter. I finally put up shelves. Started cooking again. I see my sister twice a month and stopped checking the door camera every night. Mostly. But a few nights ago I was at a small diner on the edge of town. First time I'd eaten in. Sat by the window. The waitress brought my burger and smiled. Behind her, a man mopped the tile by the register. Quiet. Pale. No name tag. Our eyes met for only a second. He looked away. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was someone new. But I didn't finish my food. I just left a 20 on the table and walked straight to the parking lot. I didn't look back. Because some people don't chase you. They just make sure you never stop running. The scariest thing about certain people is not what they do, but how easily they blend in. How silently they slip into your routine and make you feel like their presence was always supposed to be there. We're taught to look out for danger that shouts, that stomps, that breaks in through the door. But some dangers hold it open for you. They smile, they offer napkins, they mop your floor. And by the time you realize something's wrong, they've already memorized your habits. Always trust your instincts, especially when the threat doesn't seem loud. Because the quiet ones, they're the ones who plan ahead. I didn't plan on stopping at Burger King that night. I've driven past that old yellow-signed restaurant dozens of times. Its lights flickering, the lot nearly always empty, ever since I moved to Reading. But on June 10th, exactly 47 days after the miscarriage, I needed something quiet, something predictable. My fridge was empty. My phone was silent. I sat at the edge of grief and loneliness and decided isolation might kill me faster than anything else. So I pulled in. It was 7:40 p.m. when I stepped through the door. The place smelled like heated plastic and fries. Only 3 people inside, the mother and toddler at the back, and a man I hadn't seen before. He was in his late 40s, gray hair starting at the temples, seated alone in the booth by the window. He stirred his drink with a straw slowly, deliberately. When I entered, he glanced up for a heartbeat before dropping his gaze again. Something about that flicker unsettled me, but I ignored it and went to order at the counter. The cashier was in his early 20s, scraggly hair, tired eyes. I ordered a Whopper with no cheese, small fry, Diet Coke, and said, "For here." He nodded without looking up. I took my tray and sat at a booth directly next to the window, one table over from the man with the straw. I didn't want conversation. I just wanted to feel something resembling calm. The first few minutes were normal in the way pain sometimes feels normal. Muted. I bit into my burger, watched the traffic lights switch outside, thought about how small my town felt, how alone I'd become since walking away from the classroom. I quit teaching after the anxiety and grief overwhelmed me. No more weathered chalkboards, no more welcoming hands reaching up for help I couldn't give. Just silence. And tonight I craved even that. Then he spoke. Soft. Quiet. "You used to teach, didn't you?" My breath caught. I wasn't expecting words. He sounded familiar, was calm as a whisper. I wondered if I should pretend I didn't hear him. "Excuse me?" He didn't look at me directly. He just stated, "My niece was in your class. You taught 4th grade, at Rivergate Elementary." That hit me like a cold splash of water. I blinked. I didn't recognize him. He smiled gently. "Okay. You probably wouldn't." I swallowed hard. "What's her name?" He shook his head. "Doesn't matter. You always wore scarves, even when it was warm." That one got me. Tears pricked behind my eyes. I hadn't worn that scarf in months, not since the winter classes ended. I forced a nod, trying to hide the trembling in my hands. He didn't say anything else. After that, I moved 2 booths away, trying to keep him from seeing me through the window reflection. But he didn't follow, didn't leave. He sat quietly, sipping his drink, occasionally glancing toward me or at the passing headlights. At 8:15 p.m., the mother and toddler left. The boy waved at me. I smiled back out of politeness. When I turned around, the restaurant was almost empty, just me and him left. Light overhead flickered. I got up, picking up my tray, walked toward the hallway where restrooms were. The man didn't move. "Hello? Anyone here?" I called, my voice small. Nothing. When I turned back, he had moved. Now he sat in the booth I'd been in, the one next to the window, and on the table was something. A scarf. It was pale blue with a floral print, the one I'd worn during winter, the one that had gone missing from my laundry room back in April. I whispered, "What is this?" He looked up calmly. "You're so much quieter now." My heart pounded. Panic squeezed my lungs. "I'm calling someone." He shook his head, slow. "No one picks up when you call, Autumn. That's why you came here tonight, right? No one answers. No one checks in." My tray hit the floor. I bolted toward the exit, but the dining area felt strangely still. The usual hum of conversation vanished. I stepped outside and realized the parking lot was empty. My car, gone. I froze in the asphalt. Thought I might faint. Then his voice came from behind me. "You left your door unlocked." I took it around back. "It's safe. For now." He was standing too close. I turned and ran, straight across the street toward a gas station. Nearly got hit crossing the road. I pushed inside and screamed for help. Blood pounded in my ears long after I escaped into the gas station. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh reflections off the linoleum floor as I leaned against the counter, gasping. The clerk asked if I was okay. I couldn't answer. Tears blurred my vision. A police officer arrived, 2 actually, within minutes. I gave them my statement between shuddering breaths. Told them about the scarf, the moving across booths, the whispering voice, and my missing car. I couldn't look at either officer when I said, "He said no one picks up when I call." They took me seriously that time. They combed Burger King surveillance footage, but there was nothing. No man, no scarf, no switching of booths, no forklift moving in the dining area at all. Just grainy shots of Autumn Resnick entering and leaving. They found my car behind the Burger King. Keys in the ignition, engine off. No damage, no sign of forced entry. I should have felt relief. Instead, a hollowness opened in me that screamed, if he left it, why did he take the scarf? The scarf, my scarf, never resurfaced. I was offered protection those days. A restraining order, a panic button, contact with a victim advocate. I refused it all. What was the point? The man hadn't physically harmed me. He hadn't chased me, struck me, stolen my identity. He only revealed that he knew intimate things I thought were buried between miscarriage and memory, my vulnerability, my solitude. He brought them into the world like a twisted gift. I moved to Sacramento within the week, accepting a shared apartment with strangers sitting at desks while I worked online. I changed my phone, blocked every contact from Redding, but I never removed the ache of silence echoing behind me. In my new place, I bought blackout curtains for the illusions I still see behind glass reflections. I started sleeping with the lamp on, the radio station humming softly in the background. I texted no one after midnight. I kept the doors locked, deadbolts double-checked, front camera turned to record continuously. But some nights in the dark, I hear the faint shuffle of footsteps around the car outside. Sometimes the front porch light flickers. My breath catches, because he told me he'd hid the scarf, for now. That feels like a promise. A few weeks into my new routine, I got a package. No return address. When I tore it open, I found a small envelope inside, sealed with wax. Inside that envelope, one photograph. It's me. At a bus stop, outside a window reflection showing a faintly familiar storefront sign in the distance. I don't remember having my photo taken that day. The image is dated June 10th at 8:05 p.m. That's 30 minutes after I'd sat down to eat, after he'd first spoken. I dropped the picture on my kitchen counter and stared. The coffee I'd poured trembled in my hand. No note, no explanation, just the image. It wasn't a threat. It was a message that he could watch me anytime, that I was never really alone, that I was never safe. It felt like he was rewriting my timeline through still frames. I filed the photo with the police, who again said there was nothing they could do without identification, without a name or a face. So I did the only thing left. I reconstructed. I cut off routes I once traveled. I avoided sidewalks near Redding. I even started wearing hoodies so strangers couldn't see my hair color from the outside. It wasn't paranoia. It was self-preservation. Months passed. No scarves came. No silent visits in the night. No whispers behind reflexive anxiety. I started to believe maybe somehow it was over. Then one morning I got a text message. Not from a number I recognized. Just a photo attachment and one line. Photo. Me, standing at the checkout in my shared apartment lobby, hair gathered in a scarf I'd thrown away. Text. Here lies the quiet booth. The window still watches. My heart pounded so hard I dropped my phone. The blood rushed into my face. I could feel something inside me collapse into cold. That message was a tether back to that booth, to that man, to my undone peace. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the edge of my bed with every light in the apartment blazing, waiting for a knock that never came, waiting for the silhouette in the hallway, for my name whispered from the dark, or the soft placement of another scarf by my window. None of that happened. But the message haunted me more than any physical threat could have. Not just because it confirmed he still watched me, not even because he had access to my discarded belongings. It was the wording. Here lies the quiet booth. The window still watches. He didn't just mean a place, he meant me. I was the booth now. I was the quiet. I had become the window through which he viewed the world. Somehow, I had let him in. Not into my apartment, but into my mind. He hadn't just studied me. He understood me. That's what terrified me. People often talk about the fear of being hurt, but they never talk about the fear of being understood by the wrong person. That's what he did. He learned the weight of my silences, the rhythm of my isolation, and he carved himself into it like a hidden note tucked between two piano keys. I stared at my phone for hours. I blocked the number, deleted the image. But I knew it was already too late. You can't unsee something like that. You can't unknow that someone has drawn a map of your emotional geography and decided to set up camp in its loneliest corners. The police came again. Another report filed. Another detective with tired eyes telling me there was little they could do without him breaking a law. Apparently, watching wasn't enough. Following wasn't enough. Sending photographs wasn't enough. They suggested therapy. I tried. But every time a counselor asked me, "What makes you feel unsafe?" I didn't know how to explain that it wasn't just him, it was the absence of everyone else. They say grief is a vacuum, trauma is silence, loneliness is space between calls that never come. He didn't create those things, he just filled them. That's the part that took me the longest to accept. He didn't appear when I was surrounded by people. He found me after. He found me when no one else did. And I know he counted on that. So I began the slow process of reversing what he did. I started calling people again. Even if they didn't always answer. I started making appointments, joining forums for miscarriage survivors, going to tutoring meetups. I changed my number again, not to disappear, but to decide who I wanted in my life, and who I didn't. I put down the emotional silence he used against me, and picked up the messier, louder sounds of rebuilding. I stopped sitting by windows, but I started opening them in the daylight, on my terms. I don't know if he's still out there, watching someone else, or still watching me from a distance I'll never measure. But I do know this. He was only powerful in the places I let go of myself. And I'm not letting go anymore. Loneliness can make even the wrong attention feel like intimacy. But someone seeing your pain doesn't mean they care about healing it. Be careful who you let inside the quiet parts of you. Some people only knock when they know no one else is home. And if you ever feel like someone knows you too well, ask yourself, did they earn it? Or just wait for no one else to show up? Never underestimate the safety of being known by the right people. I never expected a quiet Tuesday evening to rattle me like that. It was June of 2022, mid-shift at the Burger King on Redwood Parkway in Sterling Falls, Colorado. The kind of heat that sticks to your skin even indoors. I'd been wiping tray tables behind the register, ears tuned to the low hiss of fryers, hoping the dinner crowd would leave me to myself for the final hour. My community college psychology studies were humming in my head like background noise, but I craved nothing more than a fast piece of silence. At 8:30 p.m., she walked in. A plain thing, maybe 14 or 15, soaked to the bones like she'd been standing in rain that never fell. But if you looked closely, her eyes were hollow, too old for her age. She walked straight to me at the counter, no hesitation. "Can I have a cup of ice? Just ice." Her voice was so quiet I had to lean in, maybe half my own strength. So I handed her an insulated plastic cup filled to the brim, no charge. Lots of kids come in for ice or to recharge in the AC, but something about this felt different. She didn't say thanks. She took the cup and went to the far booth in the lobby corner, not near any windows, and sat with her back to the door. Over the next 40 minutes, she didn't eat, didn't drink, only slowly chewed ice bit by bit, carefully, like it kept her present. She turned her head every time the automatic doors beeped open. I caught myself matching her movements, watching from behind the register. Anxiety is contagious when someone's carrying it that visibly. At 9:20, my coworker Lex leaned over and whispered, "That kid's been here a while. You think she's okay?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. She caught me watching her glance at the security camera corner and then duck her head low. The tension felt thick enough to weigh down the ceiling lights. I quietly finished wiping a table nearby. She didn't move, didn't leave, didn't ask for anything else. By 9:40, the place had a handful of leftover customers. Then he walked in, mid-40s, grizzled beard, heavy flannel jacket stained with oil or sludge. He scanned every corner slowly, eyes dragging toward her direction. She sat unmoving, hand knuckles white around that cup, didn't blink, didn't budge. He came up to the counter, didn't order, just leaned forward and asked, "Here?" Blonde, about this tall. My stomach plummeted. "Did a girl come in?" I mustered and murmured, "Watched." "Sorry, we don't give out customer info." He didn't argue, just gave a weird smile. She always finds a way to disappear, then turned and sat one booth behind her, exactly one booth over. Not to intimidate, but not hidden either. He didn't speak again, just... The girl kept chewing ice, staring ahead into nothing. I spotted sweat on the flannel guy's forehead, heat haze in the lobby, or stress, I couldn't tell. 10 minutes passed. A few customers came and went. He finally stood, walked to the door, and got into a truck idling outside. Engine on. He stared through the glass at her as he pulled forward a few feet, then idled. Still stared. She stood up immediately once he moved. I watched her slip toward the restroom, locked in. I waited 2 minutes. 5. Then knocked gently. "Hey, you okay?" No answer. When I looked back outside, the truck was still there. Lights off, engine running. It was 10:05 when the restroom door opened. She looked out, eyes wide. I stepped over and quietly asked, "Is that man following you?" Her nod was subtle but keen. I invited her into the staff hallway. She hesitated, then slid past me and disappeared behind the ice machine. I sent Lex to call the manager, and after that, the police. But when Lex returned, the truck was gone. The girl had vanished. We checked the bathrooms, the hallways, completely empty. Only thing left? That cup of ice, melted into nothing, and under it, a wet napkin with smudged pen. If he asks, tell him I ran the other way. My stomach churned when I saw that napkin scribble. My hands trembled as I pulled it from under the melted ice residue. I called Lex over, motioned to the note. His face went pale. I don't remember the rest of that hour clearly. Manager's arrival, Lex pacing, me repeating what I'd seen. By the time patrol officers showed up, I was shaking so badly I couldn't hold the napkin straight. I watched them take down statements. Ages, clothing, timing, registration number of truck, but no matching record. No one in the system reported a missing girl that night. We asked to view our security footage. Manager frowned and shook his head. Wi-Fi glitch happened earlier. Cameras are offline for 20 minutes. That window included the entire stretch from 9:20 to 10:10 p.m. Too much happening exactly then. They searched the building cover to cover. Empty bathrooms. No girl behind freezers or broom closets. No trace of anyone except Lex and me. I tried calling the station the next day, asking if any missing child reports could match her. But they said nothing had come through. No matching descriptions. No Amber Alert. Nothing. Still, I couldn't shake the chill. That girl was real to me. Fear was real. His presence was real too. That weekend, I quit my psychology class. School felt impossible. I drove past that Burger King a few times. It looked even more decrepit in morning. The flickering sign half lit, casting long shadows in the dusty parking lot. I felt foolish driving by, but also cautious, as if I hadn't seen more than required and was still waiting for something to happen. I stopped eating at that chain afterward, at fast food booths in general. I started offering extra ice not as hospitality, but because I wondered who else showed up broken, hoping for cold fragments of presence. I bought extra camera equipment for my apartment entrance. I downloaded emergency apps, but police told me they had no record, no report, no person matching the description of the girl, no truck, no man in flannel. No one ever came to ask over the next weeks. No missing person posters. No memory of her lost status aired publicly. Yet every coarse memory of that night sits between my shoulder blades, pressing downward. The ice cup, the napkin, the booth. They didn't belong, but they still sit in my mind like anchors. 2 weeks passed before I could talk about that night without my voice catching. I didn't quit Burger King, though I wanted to. Bills are louder than fear sometimes, and I figured maybe if I stayed long enough I'd catch her again. Walking in, looking for ice. Maybe the guy would come back. Maybe I'd get the chance to say something more, do something different. But neither of them showed. Every time the doors chimed open, I looked up. I couldn't stop. Just a reflex now. Scan for a wet hoodie or the man with the flannel jacket and that dead stare. Nothing ever came close. I asked the manager if anything weird had happened before that night. She said no, just the occasional homeless person or late-night kid sneaking fries. I asked Lex again just to be sure. He said something quiet like, maybe she was just passing through, you know? One of those in-between people. It stuck with me. In between. Between places. Between homes. Between danger and rescue. The napkin she left, I still had it. Folded in my glove box. The pen ink had bled through from water, but you could still read it if you looked close. If he asks, tell him I ran the other way. It haunted me, that she had enough presence of mind to write that like she'd done it before. Like disappearing was a skill. I started looking at missing persons sites late at night, scanning cases by state. Sterling Falls didn't even have an updated list. I expanded my search. Teen girls, blonde, slight build, nothing matched. I also kept thinking about how calm she was. Shaking, sure, but she didn't cry. She didn't plead. She knew what she had to do, like she was trained. One night around closing, I told Lex that maybe she was part of a trafficking ring. That maybe the guy wasn't her dad or brother or uncle, just someone who owned her in some horrible way. He shrugged, but then he said, the way she froze when he sat behind her, that's not surprise, that's survival. I didn't sleep much after that. By July, things started feeling normal again. I was prepping for fall semester, trying to reset. Then, one night around 9 p.m., a different girl came in asking for a cup of ice. She couldn't have been more than 12. I stared too long before handing it to her. She gave me this weird look like I was being invasive and walked off to the other side of the dining area. Nothing else happened that night. No man, no truck, no smudged napkin. But I realized something. It wasn't just her. Kids came in all the time needing something cold to chew. And I never asked why. Never wondered what they were running from or toward. I started keeping granola bars and bottled water behind the counter. I asked my manager for permission. She gave me a look like I was crazy but agreed. No one asked about the girl again. No police follow-up. No missing report. Nothing on the news. And me? I started scanning every booth for signs of someone hiding in plain sight. The only thing worse than a haunting is when you start wondering if you imagined the whole thing. That thought kept creeping into my brain. Maybe I made it up. Maybe the girl never existed. Maybe I'd conjured the whole thing in the fog of my psych midterms and late-night drive-thrus and broken air conditioning units. But every time I cleaned that corner booth, I could feel her there. The quiet, the stiffness, the way she gripped that paper cup like it was the only thing holding her to the planet. One night, mid-August, I was taking trash out back when I saw it again. A truck. Same make, same dent on the bumper, parked a block down under a flickering streetlight. No one in it. I froze. Bags of garbage clutched in each hand, heart pounding. The air was warm, but I felt cold behind the ears. I dumped the bags and went back inside fast. Didn't say anything to anyone. I checked again 10 minutes later. The truck was gone. I wanted to believe it was coincidence, but I couldn't. My hands shook through the rest of my shift. Lex asked if I was okay, and I lied, said I was cramping. He didn't push. That night I drove a different way home, took side streets, checked my rear view every 5 seconds, parked 2 blocks away from my own house just to be sure I wasn't being followed. Nothing happened. No one called. No one asked. But a few days later, an envelope showed up in the Burger King mailbox. No return address. It was addressed to staff. Inside? One thing. A printed image from a surveillance still. Not ours. Ours had glitched. But from a traffic cam across the street. It was grainy, but there she was. Walking across the parking lot toward our building. The timestamp matched that night. 8:29 p.m., June 10th. She was real. On the back of the photo, written in sharp black pen, she got out. Keep helping. That was it. I stood in the office break room staring at that sentence until the floor felt like water. Lex didn't believe me at first. Where'd this come from? I handed him the envelope. You think she sent it? He asked. I shrugged. I wasn't sure, but whoever did, they knew. We taped it inside the backroom locker, behind cleaning schedules and shift notes. A quiet reminder that this job, this place, might matter more than we knew. Maybe she didn't disappear. Maybe she escaped. And maybe that cup of ice was her version of armor. It's been over a year since she came in. The napkin's still folded in my glove box. The photo is still taped inside the employee locker. Lex doesn't bring it up much anymore. He transferred to a Walgreens across town. Said he wanted quieter nights, fewer shadows in the corners. I didn't ask if he meant that literally. I still work the evening shifts when I can. Not for the money. My class load picked up and I tutor now. But because part of me still waits. Every night I'm on shift, I leave a fresh cup filled with ice near the front register. I don't tell the new hires why. I don't need to. It's not about superstition. It's about readiness. I want to be ready if someone else walks in scared, silent, watching the door like it might break open at any second. And sometimes they do. A boy with dirt on his hands who asked to use the restroom and never came out. Turned out he snuck out the back. A woman with a shaking hand and 2 different shoes who sat in the booth farthest from the windows. I gave her a napkin and she scribbled something down before tossing it in the trash. I fished it out later. He's out. I don't know where he is. Don't trust the uniforms. I kept that one too. I don't know why. Maybe because sometimes when people are trying to disappear, a fast food lobby is the safest place they can think of, and that scares the hell out of me. A psychologist I follow online, one of those TikTok therapists, once said that trauma survivors don't always look like they're suffering. Sometimes they just look like they're trying not to take up space. That girl, she was a ghost, already fading from the room even while she sat right in front of me. And I did nothing, really. I gave her ice. But maybe that was something. I keep playing it back. If I had pushed harder, offered her a ride, called someone sooner, would she have vanished anyway? Or worse, would I have scared her into running toward something even darker? I may never know, but I do know this. The next time someone looks at me with that "don't make me explain" kind of stare, I won't wait for a manager. I'll make the call. I'll ask the question. I'll trust my gut over my training manual. People talk a lot about being a hero. But the real truth? Sometimes survival depends on tiny acts. A cup of ice, a locked door, a booth out of sight, and someone behind the counter willing to look twice. Sometimes the smallest kindness is the only thing keeping someone from breaking apart completely. We don't always get the closure we crave. We don't always know the full story. But that doesn't mean what we did didn't matter. Pay attention. Act on instinct when it's screaming. And remember, for someone else, your ordinary might be their lifeline. Keep ice on hand, just in case. I never thought dropping out of film school would land me working graveyard shifts at a 24-hour Burger King off Summerlin Parkway in Vegas. But here I was. The dream of directing my own indie film crashed and burned after my first short barely cleared 10 views on YouTube, and most of those were probably bots. I maxed out 2 credit cards trying to get that project made. I burned bridges. Hell, I even sold my camera gear. After that, I needed cash, fast, so I started driving Uber. Then I found the job at Burger King. At first, it wasn't bad. Quiet nights, easy money. I'd prop up my notebook beside the register, scribble script ideas between orders, and watch the odd cast of characters shuffle in past midnight. Drunk tourists, tweakers, lonely souls with nowhere else to go. Vegas doesn't really sleep, but it sure has weird dreams at 2 a.m. But lately, Something had changed. I started noticing patterns. Cars pulling up to the lot and then driving off without ordering. The same gray Honda parked across the street for 3 nights straight. Strange customers who stayed too long without eating anything. And tonight, I had a bad feeling from the start. My shift began at 10:45 p.m. Malik, the shift manager, gave his usual nod and went to his office in the back. He didn't talk much unless he had to, but I trusted him more than anyone else there. The only other person on shift that night was Denise, a college freshman doing part-time work to pay for textbooks. She had left around 1:30 a.m., and I was alone for the last leg. Around 1:50, a homeless guy wandered into the drive-thru and started screaming at the speaker box. Said something about them watching him, about how they were already inside. I figured it was just one of the usual meth heads. Happens more than you'd think in this city. But the way he looked at me before he ran off stuck with me. It wasn't anger, it was fear. By 2:17, I was wiping down the self-serve soda station when the group came in. 5 men, early 30s maybe. No masks, no fast food energy. They didn't stumble and drunk or talk loudly like the usual bar crowd. They were calm, quiet, purposeful. That was the part that threw me. They split up like they were casing the place. One guy, tall, built like a linebacker, clean buzz cut, stood near the bathrooms. Another leaned on the counter, staring at the menu board without blinking. The rest spread out in the dining area. None of them ordered anything. I went behind the counter and pretended to organize the cups, but I was watching every move. I don't know what gave it away. Maybe it was the stillness, the way they avoided looking at each other too much. But I knew something was wrong. That's when I saw her. A girl, early 20s, sitting alone by the window with a cold cheeseburger she hadn't touched. She looked at me, then mouthed something slow and clear. "Don't look scared." Then she stood up and walked into the bathroom. A second later, I heard a soft click behind me. One of the men had just locked the front entrance. I froze. This wasn't just a weird vibe. This was something real. Something wrong. I reached under the register for the silent alarm. The only hope in a moment like this. But when I felt for the button, my fingers hit tape. It had been covered. Disabled. They had planned this. I backed away, trying not to show panic. The man near the counter glanced at me. His hand slipped into his jacket and I caught a metallic flash. A weapon, maybe a gun. I couldn't be sure, but I knew this wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This place had been chosen, and they were waiting for something. Or someone. I told myself to breathe. Slow, don't run, don't tip them off. But my heart was banging like a drum solo behind my ribs. I tried to make it to the back room, maybe find Malik, but the guy near the hallway moved slightly to block it. I glanced at the clock, 2:23 a.m. The guy at the register finally spoke. "We want everything from the safe," he said. I gave the only answer I could. "It's time-locked, can't open it until 4. He tilted his head, almost disappointed. I said, "We want it." Then, something unexpected happened. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. I thought maybe it was just the city grid doing its usual twitch. But then I noticed all 5 men suddenly go quiet. Like, more quiet. Still. One of them looked up at the ceiling, toward the vent above the fryer station. A loud thud echoed from it. A puff of dust fell onto the fryer hood. Then silence again. "Yo, what the hell was that?" I muttered without thinking. No answer. The men didn't react, but I swear I saw one of them smile, just slightly. Then came the sound of a door creaking. Everyone turned. The restroom door opened slowly. Out stepped Malik. Only something was wrong. His hands were tied in front of him with plastic zip ties. Blood was running down the side of his face. His shirt was ripped. His mouth opened, and all he could manage was a hoarse whisper. "Don't trust anyone, they're not just robbing you." And he collapsed onto the floor. In that instant, the tension snapped. I took off, bolting through the kitchen, pushing the emergency back door so hard I nearly knocked it off its hinges. As I turned the corner behind the building, I almost ran straight into a guy in uniform, A cop, crouched beside his cruiser, halfway through a gas station burrito. He grabbed me immediately, shoving me to the pavement, yelling, "What's going on? Who are you?" I was flailing, shouting, "Inside! Armed! 5 of them! Help!" He radioed for backup. I could barely breathe. 10 minutes later, the restaurant was surrounded, but it was already too late. The whole place lit up in red and blue. By the time they rushed the building, the inside of the Burger King looked like a ghost town. Empty booths, lights still flickering, not a single customer, no sign of the 5 men, no Malik. Gone. I sat in the back of the squad car, still handcuffed for procedure, shaking like I'd just pulled myself out of a wreck. An EMT cleaned a small cut on my cheek I didn't remember getting. I kept asking if anyone was hurt, if they found Malik, if they got the guys, but the cops just kept giving me looks that made my stomach twist. Nothing. No suspects, no witnesses, and it got worse. The security system had been fried. Someone had cut the cables directly behind the access panel in the manager's office, clean, like they knew exactly what to snip. The hard drives were gone. The alarm system completely disabled. Whoever these guys were, they were professionals, or something close. One detective, last name Jennings, finally sat with me and asked me to walk through the whole thing again, every detail. I did my best, but he kept circling back to the same thing. "You're sure you saw your manager come out of the bathroom?" I nodded. Out. "Yeah." He had his hands tied, bleeding. Told me not to trust anyone. Then he passed Jennings, raised an eyebrow. "Funny, because we found no blood, not even a drop, and no zip ties, no signs of anyone being dragged out." "I know what I saw. You say the alarm was taped over? Anyone else with access to that panel besides your manager?" "Just me and Denise. She left before anything happened." He paused, stared at me for a second too long. "You ever been in trouble before?" I knew what this was. They were already turning the story against me. "Look," I said, voice low. "Something went down in that place tonight, and it wasn't a robbery. These guys weren't trying to get cash. They were looking for someone. Or something." Jennings stood up. "We'll be in touch." He walked out. They kept me at the station until 5:30 a.m., then finally let me go. I didn't go home. I didn't sleep. I sat in my car outside a 7-Eleven for almost an hour, staring at the sunrise like it might explain something. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Malik stumbling out of that bathroom, tied up, eyes full of panic. And I couldn't shake the feeling that I hadn't just witnessed something criminal. I'd witnessed something planned, like I was part of it and didn't know it. Around noon, Denise called. "I just got home," she said. "What the hell happened last night?" I told her everything. She went quiet when I mentioned the girl at the window. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Ryan, there wasn't a girl sitting by the window. I cleaned that section right before I left. It was empty." I froze. I remembered her face, her lips moving. "Don't look scared." Had I imagined her? No, I couldn't have. She warned me. Then it hit me. The restroom. I drove back to the parking lot before the franchise could reopen. There were still yellow cones around the entrance, but nobody stopped me from circling to the back. I walked toward the employee entrance, and that's when I saw it. A phone. An old black burner phone lying by the bathroom dumpster. I picked it up with a napkin and powered it on. One file. An audio clip labeled only with the time, 2:19 a.m. I hit play. For the first 10 seconds, silence. Then faint breathing. Then a whisper. "He's next." I dropped the phone like it burned me. That night, I packed everything I owned into my car. Didn't even tell my roommate. Didn't quit my job. Just left. I changed my name in the system, switched states, deleted every old email I could think of. I stopped posting online. I stopped using cards. I paid in cash. I stayed off highways. For months, I lived like a fugitive. I didn't know if they were still looking for me, or if I was even the one they were looking for in the first place. But then 2 things happened. First, a news story popped up in a back corner internet forum. some conspiracy site, about a different Burger King in Arizona. Same MO group of men. No evidence left behind. One employee vanished. Then came the second thing. A package. No return address. Inside was a flash drive and a photo of me taken from across a parking lot. On the flash drive, another audio file. This time it was clear. 3 words whispered slowly, drawn out like the breath of something inhuman. "We remember you. I don't know who they are. I don't want to. But I know this. They're not just criminals, not just robbers. There's something else going on, something worse. And whatever it is, I was in it. Maybe still am. I haven't stepped inside a Burger King since. I check every vent, every locked door, every shadow in the corner of the room. And when I sleep, I keep a light on, not because it keeps them away, but because I need to remember. Not all threats wear masks, not all warnings come loud, and sometimes the only thing that keeps you alive is paying attention to the small things, the flickering lights, the fake smiles, the gut feelings. Because when danger comes quietly, your only defense is knowing when to run. If you'd told me 2 years ago that I'd be mopping sticky floors at a Burger King near the edge of campus instead of finishing my psychology degree, I probably would have laughed. But life doesn't ask for your permission before it falls apart. My name's Evelyn. I'm 22, originally from Joliet. I moved to Chicago to be closer to the university, and I was doing okay for a while. But the panic attacks started coming hard during my second semester, full-body spirals that left me on the floor breathless, seeing dots. Professors called it stress. Counselors called it situational anxiety disorder. All I knew was that the thought of lecture halls or even logging into Zoom made my skin crawl. When my mom moved back to the Philippines and my dad remarried, I was pretty much alone. No one to cover rent. No one to call for help. I took the closing shift job at Burger King to get out of the apartment and keep the lights on. The hours sucked, but there was something oddly comforting about the routine. Restock at 9, mop by 10, lock the doors at 11. It wasn't college, but it was something. That structure was all I had until she showed up. It was Wednesday, November 22nd, the night before Thanksgiving. Most students had gone home. It was raining. The streets outside were dead silent, except for the occasional squeal of tires or a red line bus sighing to a stop across the street. At exactly 10:47 p.m., the front door opened and she walked in. A pale woman in a long green coat. Her hair was slick from the rain, water dripping onto the tile, but she didn't seem to notice. She didn't look at the menu. She just stared straight at me, her eyes fixed like she'd been expecting me. Whopper, no onions. And please, could you toast the bun longer this time? I blinked. Her voice was calm. Not sleepy, not friendly. Just calm in a way that felt off. But I took her order and handed it over a few minutes later. She sat at the far booth by the window, the one we almost never cleaned because nobody stayed that long. She didn't eat, just sat there, hands folded, watching. I glanced at the clock. 10:57. "We close in a few minutes, ma'am," I said gently. She nodded without moving. I watched her from behind the counter waiting, but she never left. The next week, same time, Wednesday, 10:47 p.m., she came again, same coat, same order, same booth. This time, Jay was on fries and caught me glancing over at her. "What's her deal?" he asked. "No idea. She's polite, just weird," I replied. Jay smirked. "Maybe she's waiting for someone, like a weird date." Imani, our shift supervisor, chimed in. "Or maybe she's stalking you." They laughed. I fake laughed too. But deep down, something felt wrong. Week 3, she came again. Same everything. But the weird part, it hadn't rained once that day, yet she still walked in soaked. I asked her if she needed a towel or napkins. She just shook her head. She never ate. Not once. Week 4, I noticed something new. When she came in, the store's music would stop. The speakers crackled like someone was adjusting a dial, but no one touched the system. Week 5, Jay left early. Imani had a migraine and called out. I was alone. At 10:45, I felt it. That quiet buildup of pressure, like the room was holding its breath. And then she came in. That night, she didn't go to the counter. She walked straight to the booth and sat down. Her eyes never left me. I tried to stay calm, focused on cleaning, wiping down the prep station, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. She finally spoke, soft and even. He shouldn't have left me here. I looked up. Sorry? Who? She didn't look at me. She looked through me. Her jaw was tight, her fists clenched. She spoke again, eyes glazed in something like grief. I waited in this exact booth, 11 hours, until they closed. They all forgot I was here. My throat went dry. The clock above the counter ticked loudly. Do you need me to call someone? I asked. She smiled, not kindly, like she knew something I didn't. Then she reached into her coat and pulled out a photo. She slid it across the table. It was an old print, grainy and yellowed, dated October 1996 in black ink. The photo showed this exact Burger King, that same booth. A young girl sat there, slouched and tired looking. It was me. Same mole, same face, same build, even the same tired expression I'd seen in the mirror for weeks. I dropped the photo. What the hell is this? But she didn't answer. She just stared. Then the lights flickered. A bulb buzzed out. The electronic lock on the back door clicked shut. I turned around. No Jay, no Imani, no customers. When I turned back, she was gone. Just the Whopper sat on the table, still steaming, untouched. The next day I asked the manager if I could review the footage. He looked at me like I was nuts. Why? You think she stole something? No, I need to see who was in the store. At closing. He gave in. We pulled the footage for 10:40 to 11:05. Everything looked fine, until 10:47. At exactly that minute, the footage glitched, just cut to static. 6 minutes and 42 seconds of pure gray fuzz. When it came back, I was standing alone behind the counter, eyes wide, staring at something off camera. You okay? He asked. I nodded, even though I wasn't. Later, on break, I asked the new girl, Callie, if she'd ever heard anything weird about the store. She said, You know someone died in that booth, right? I stopped eating. What? Girl who worked here back in the 90s, got locked in during an overnight inventory shift. Manager forgot to check the booths. They found her dead from exposure. I asked, Do you know her name? She shook her head. The person who left her there. No, but some say she still comes in before close, like she's looking for I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I switched to morning shifts the next week. I told them it was my class schedule, but really I couldn't walk past that booth without feeling like I'd stepped into someone else's memory. Or maybe it was my own. Sleep hasn't been the same since. I dream of wet sidewalks and red booths. I dream of her sitting there, waiting. Always waiting. Some nights I wake up and my clothes are damp. My sheets stick to me like I just came in from a storm. The smell of old grease and wet tile lingers in the room. Last week, I walked past the store on my way to the pharmacy. It was near closing. I glanced through the window. The booth was empty, but the bun warmer flicked on by itself. And someone had ordered a Whopper, no onions. I walked faster, didn't look back. Some memories don't belong to you, and some ghosts don't want revenge. They just want to be remembered. Not all hauntings are about horror. Some are about habit. Grief doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers through the walls of a place you forgot to care about. And the past we try to leave behind often waits in the places we think are safe. So don't just lock the doors, check the booths. I moved from Portland to Spokane in early January, 2 months clean and desperate for a fresh start. After years of addiction and misfortune, I checked into a sober house, started attending NA meetings daily, and took a part-time job cleaning the lobby at the Burger King on North Monroe Street. I liked the afternoon shift. Enough customers to keep things normal, but not overwhelming. And I found comfort in routine, in small, friendly exchanges with people who reminded me of my grandfather. For the first time in years, I felt like I might just rebuild something real. Then the man showed up. It was Monday, March 11th, 2024, exactly 4:26 p.m. I had just swept the last corner of the lobby when he walked in. Mid-40s, baseball cap pulled low, beige jacket, clean-shaven. He looked average, nothing unusual. He ordered a plain cheeseburger and a small coffee, then drifted toward the back corner booth by the window. He sat down, held the burger in both hands, and just stared at it. He didn't chew. He didn't drink. He didn't blink much. I was finishing up the mop when something unsettled me. I walked over, trying to lighten the moment. "Burger not good," I said casually. "Or are you just admiring craftsmanship?" He didn't react, didn't even lift his eyes off the burger. My chest tightened, not fear really, but something close to discomfort. I turned and walked away. Later, I told my coworker, Jasmine, he didn't eat it, just sat there holding it. She shrugged and said, "Some people are just weird, Kev." But I felt a knot in my stomach. He came every afternoon that week, always at 4:26, always sat in the same booth, ordered the same meal, and never touched the food or coffee. On Thursday, I noticed he didn't throw away the wrapper when he left. His cup was bone dry. I never saw him take a sip. I couldn't ignore it. By Friday, I was determined to figure it out. Friday felt like something shifted in the air. I finished tidying early and stood near the mop closet, pretending to organize cleaning supplies, but really, I was waiting. At 4:26 sharp, he walked in, ordered exactly as before, and sat down. I positioned myself so I could sweep near his booth without drawing attention. Sweat prickled at my neck. He cradled the cheeseburger, so still I could hear the wrapper creak slightly. Then he leaned forward and whispered to it, "She doesn't see me, but I see you. You're the same. You're just pretending not to remember." My breath caught in my chest. I froze mid-sweep. He spoke under his breath, low and urgent. It wasn't a joke, not a performance. It felt conversational, painful. I wanted to speak up, but fear stopped me. I whispered to Jasmine when I turned away. "He's talking to the burger," I said. She looked skeptical. "Maybe he's on a phone call you can't hear." No phone, no blinking. He stared through me like I wasn't real. We called our manager, Sergio, who came to the lobby and said we'd check the cameras after. I wiped sweat from my forehead as I continued sweeping, heart pounding. Sergio paused the feed as soon as it loaded. There was me standing and talking. There was the booth, but it was empty. No man, no burger, no cup. Just empty space. The footage showed me smiling in that direction, nodding, even laughing nervously. I saw it, a man talking to empty air. My stomach twisted. That's impossible," I told Sergio. He exchanged a look with Jasmine and nodded. "Let me check something." Under the booth, taped to the table frame, was a yellowing receipt. Crooked, brittle paper. Date, March 11th, 1998. Name, Calvin Moore. Order, cheeseburger, small coffee. Instantly, each hair on my arm stood up. Calvin Moore had been a Burger King employee who disappeared 26 years ago. His car was found idling in the parking lot, his food untouched on the table. No one ever found him. I left after my shift with hands shaking. That night I lay awake doing research, found local news archives about Calvin Moore's disappearance. There was a brief police inquiry, but eventually it faded away, cold case filed. I stared at the receipt. The same booth position, the same order, the same time. Every 4:26 p.m. Calvin must have sat there whether anyone noticed or not. I stopped taking afternoon shifts after that, Monday, Tuesday. I stuck to mornings. I couldn't be near that booth anymore. But every afternoon I thought about it, that hushed monologue to an untouched burger. Did Calvin exist as a ghost? Or was it something darker, some psychological echo of loss? All I knew, something real had brushed up against me, and I nearly walked away not noticing. I didn't tell my sponsor about it, not at first. I thought he'd think I was cracked, like I was slipping into old paranoia or hallucinations, things that used to haunt me in the thick of withdrawal. But this wasn't that. I was clean. I was grounded. I had proof. I had a date, a name, and a receipt. Still, I switched to mornings. Opened the restaurant with Sergio 3 days in a row, just to be as far from that 426 window as possible. I avoided the booth like it carried static electricity, but I couldn't stop thinking about it, about Calvin, about what he saw in that final hour of his life, if he ever really left. That Saturday, I came in early to cover someone's breakfast shift. After lunch, I stayed a little too long. I told myself I was just cleaning a little more thoroughly, taking pride in the job. Truth was, I wanted to see if he'd come back. Curiosity doesn't always care about your fear. At 4:25 p.m., I stood at the drink station, slowly wiping down a tray. The sun was filtering through the window exactly the way it had before. And then, like clockwork, he came in. Same beige jacket, same worn cap, same flat expression. My hands went cold. He stepped to the register, ordered his usual from the new kid on cash, and made his way to the booth in the back. I stayed frozen. He sat down, opened the wrapper, held the burger in both hands, didn't bite, didn't blink. I backed into the mop closet and shut the door, breathing hard. It wasn't the kind of fear you get when you're in danger. It was deeper. It felt like my body remembered something my mind didn't, a warning I couldn't name. I didn't open the closet until 10 minutes had passed. When I peeked out, he was gone. The booth was empty, nothing on the table, not a crumb. I walked slowly over, but there it was again. The small coffee cup sitting perfectly still, except for the plastic lid. It shifted, just a little, like someone had taken a sip. That night I told my sponsor, Marcus. I laid it all out. I didn't even feel embarrassed. He didn't laugh. He didn't call it crazy. He just listened. Then he said, "You're 2 months clean, Kevin. You're going through a lot. Your mind's looking for structure. Trauma can do that. Find meaning where it doesn't belong." I nodded, but I didn't believe it was just my mind. Marcus was a good guy, but he hadn't seen the security footage. He hadn't seen the receipt. He hadn't heard the whisper. "She doesn't see me, but I see you." That part haunted me. I started replaying it in my head, not like a memory, but like a warning. Like Calvin wasn't just lost. He was stuck, and maybe he thought I was stuck too. I started having dreams. Always the same scene. I'm sweeping the lobby, and the place is empty. No customers, no noise, just the buzzing lights above and the hum of the soda fountain. Sunday morning, I didn't go to work. I called out. Jasmine covered my shift. Later that day, she texted me, "You're not going to believe this. The guy came again. Same booth. But this time he just stared out the window. Didn't even touch the food." I asked if she got video. She said yes. She sent me a 10-second clip. I opened it. The camera angle was perfect. The booth, the window, the empty space. No man, no food. But just like before, she looked directly at that booth, smiling, shifting her weight like she was nervous. Even did a little wave like she was trying to be polite to a regular. He was never there. But her reaction was, it wasn't just me. The next week I showed up for the afternoon shift again. I didn't tell anyone I was coming in. I just walked through the back entrance around 4:10 p.m. Jasmine gave me a strange look, but didn't ask. I tied my apron, grabbed a mop, and headed to the front, straight toward the booth. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to find. Maybe proof that it was all in my head. Maybe the opposite. But whatever it was, I needed to see it with my own eyes one more time. With no cameras, no coworkers, no hiding. Just me. and that booth. The lobby was calm. A few customers eating fries. The sun was slanting perfectly across the tile floor. Time moved slow. Or maybe I did. I found myself pacing a little. At 4:24 p.m., the bell above the entrance jingled. I didn't look up, I already knew. I heard the footsteps. 1, 2, solid, slow. The shuffle of someone whose shoes were older than their memories. He ordered. Same thing. I could hear the register beep as the new kid rang it in. No questions, no conversation. Then the footsteps again, moving across the tile. They stopped at the booth. I turned. And this time, he looked right at me. I swear to God he had a face. Not blurred, not monstrous, just tired. Human. His skin was pale like wax left too long in the sun. His eyes were sad, deep, not scary. They looked like mine used to, in the mirror on the worst nights, like someone stuck between who they were and who they were trying to be. He didn't speak, just picked up the coffee cup, raised it, held it there, and then he whispered something. "You were supposed to help me." I stepped forward. My throat was tight. I didn't know what to say. I had nothing to offer but my own guilt and 100 apologies for things I never did. But I sat down across from him. "I'm not her," I said. "I don't know who she was. I'm just trying to stay clean. I'm trying to live." His eyes blinked slowly. The cup lowered. He set it on the table. Then, without touching the burger, he stood and walked out the front door. He didn't vanish, didn't explode into light, just opened the door and left. When I looked down at the booth, the cup was still there, half full, steam still curling from the lid. After that day, I never saw him again. I checked the footage. Nothing. Booth was empty. I was talking to myself again, sitting, staring. But I remembered the heat of the cup. I remembered what he said. "You were supposed to help me." I told my sponsor everything. This time, he didn't say it was trauma. He just listened. Then he said, "Maybe you weren't supposed to help him. Maybe you're supposed to help people like him." People stuck. That sat with me. Weeks passed. I stayed clean. Eventually, I left Burger King. I started working at a halfway house, helping new guys get their feet under them. I still think about Calvin sometimes. About what happened to him in 1998, what he saw, what he was whispering about all those years. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe betrayal. Maybe he just needed someone to look him in the eyes and remind him he wasn't invisible. I go by the Burger King sometimes, mostly in the mornings. The booth's still there, still empty. But I notice people avoid sitting in it. Like instinct tells them something unspoken lingers there. I never sat in it again either, but I always nod toward it, just in case someone's still listening. Some people never truly leave until they're seen, until their pain is acknowledged. Trauma doesn't always disappear. It lingers, quiet, waiting for connection, for witness. Sometimes helping others heal is the only way to heal yourself. The past isn't always gone, but we have a choice, to carry it or to make peace with it. Not every ghost wants to haunt. Some just don't want to be forgotten. You never picture your life landing here, not behind a greasy counter under flickering lights, managing teenagers who don't show up on time and customers who treat you like furniture. I had plans once, college, degree in sociology, a dream to work with at-risk youth. That version of me felt like another life, maybe someone else's. Then came the divorce, the screaming matches, the custody battle that hollowed me out like rot under floorboards. My ex had the money, I had the kids, and no one tells you how heavy love gets when you're dragging it uphill alone. So yeah, Burger King, High Point, North Carolina, the one on North Main, tucked between a strip mall and a dry cleaner. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to keep the lights on and cereal in the cabinets. I always worked the Sunday closing shift. No one wanted it, and I preferred the quiet. The after-church families would come and go by 7, and the place would settle into a silence I found strangely peaceful, predictable, until that one Sunday in September. It was exactly 6:58 p.m. I remember the clock because I was counting down until lockup. That's when I saw him. A little boy, couldn't have been more than 8 or 9, sitting alone at a booth by the indoor play area. He wore a yellow jacket, the kind you only see in thrift stores, with a tear near the left sleeve. No food, no drink, no parents, just sitting, still as stone. I approached slowly, keeping my voice soft. "Hey, sweetheart, are your parents here?" He didn't flinch, just turned his head slightly. "They told me to wait," he said. "So I'm waiting." His voice was flat, not scared, not sad, just matter of fact. I offered him something to eat. He refused, said he already ate. He said his ride was coming soon. I waited, 10 minutes, then 15, nothing. My coworker, Andre, watched the booth from the counter. Asked, "You want me to call someone?" I said maybe. But something told me to give it a little more time. Maybe the parents were late, stuck in traffic. Maybe they'd come racing through the doors any second, full of apologies. When 30 minutes passed and no one came, I walked back toward the booth to tell him we were going to call the police. But he was gone. Not a sound. Not a door chime. No footsteps. No bathroom flush. Just gone. Andre and I checked every inch of that store. The bathrooms, the kitchen, the play area. I even ran out into the parking lot like a lunatic, scanning for a kid in yellow, heart pounding. Nothing. When we checked the security cameras, I expected to see something that made sense. A kid walking in, sitting, leaving when no one was looking. Instead, there was nothing. No sign of him ever entering, no footage of him sitting at the booth, just dead space. And yet, there I was, on screen, talking to thin air, smiling, kneeling like I was talking to a child, even laughing once nervously. Andre watched the footage 3 times, quiet. Then he said, "I saw him too. We didn't tell anyone else. Who would believe us?" The next Sunday, I made a note of the time, told myself I was being paranoid. 6:58 p.m. came and went. Nothing. But the Sunday after that, he came again. Same jacket, same booth, same stillness. I didn't talk to him this time. I just watched from the counter. The air around him felt heavier, like the space itself bent slightly, warping the calm. 20 minutes later, he was gone. Not vanished, just no longer there. The pattern continued, every week, always at the same time. And no matter what angle the cameras caught, he never appeared. But we did, reacting, watching, talking to what looked like no one. I started coming in early on Sundays just to be sure. I didn't know why. Maybe part of me thought he was real. Maybe part of me already knew he wasn't. The 4th Sunday, I decided to speak to him again. I sat across from him this time. My hands trembled, but I kept my voice steady. "Who are you waiting for, sweetie?" He looked up, really looked. His eyes were dark and calm, like someone too old for their body. "My mom worked here," he said. "She was supposed to take me home, but she never did." I swallowed hard. "What's your name?" He didn't answer, just tilted his head. "I think she forgot," he whispered. "They locked the doors. She never came back." Something in me twisted. I wanted to reach out, to tell him it wasn't his fault, that he wasn't forgotten. But before I could say anything else, he stood, turned toward the playroom and walked inside. I followed. The playroom was dark, cold, empty. The door hadn't creaked. The curtain hadn't moved. No sound. No echo. That night I couldn't sleep. I dug through old news archives online, typing in keywords I didn't even realize I remembered. Burger King, High Point, fire, child, missing. And then I found it. September 2002. A small article buried in a scan of the local paper. A fire during a closing shift. Employee trapped. Name, Cynthia Myers. Died of smoke inhalation after rushing back in to find her son. But he'd already made it outside. A bystander found him sitting on the curb, in a yellow jacket. His name was Tyler. I don't know why I needed to know. Maybe I thought naming him would make it real. Give him weight. Proof. Tyler Myers, 8 years old, survived the fire, went into foster care, adopted a year later, killed in a car accident not far from Asheville, 2003. It was too much. 2 lives shattered, both circling each other in time, unaware. A mother dying to save a son who wasn't inside. A boy waiting for a mother who'd already passed. That's what broke me. Not the horror, the tragedy. He wasn't haunting us out of anger. He wasn't even seeking revenge. He was just waiting. Every Sunday at 6:58 p.m., still waiting for a ride that never came. That week, I handed my Sunday shift to Andre. Permanently. I told him it was personal. He didn't ask questions. I bought a small yellow jacket from a thrift shop. Similar style. Same kind of tear in the sleeve. I folded it gently and put it in the lost and found bin behind the counter. No one's claimed it. But I like knowing it's there. It's been months. Sometimes, when I close up late on weeknights, I find myself glancing toward the playroom, expecting that small, quiet presence. But he never shows on any day but Sunday. I've stopped trying to explain it. Not everything can be untangled. Some pain just lingers. But there's a comfort in knowing I saw him, that I believed him, because I think that's all he ever wanted, to be seen, to not be left behind again. Sometimes I wonder if Cynthia is still out there too, trapped like him, searching, fading. But I hope, wherever she is, maybe someday she'll find him. Maybe Sunday after Sunday she's getting closer. Until then, I'll keep the jacket folded, just in case. Not all ghosts need exercising. Some just need a place to wait. Grief doesn't follow logic. It haunts in silence, in forgotten corners, in the space between what was and what could have been. Not every presence is malevolent. Sometimes it's just love that never had a place to land. We must remember to see those who are quiet, especially the ones waiting. Sometimes closure isn't a door slammed shut. It's a seat across from someone who still believes someone's coming. I never planned to work the night shift. I'm 19, soft-spoken, and the kind of kid who keeps to himself. But after Mom was hospitalized for what the doctors called a mental health breakdown, my sister Emily needed me. I dropped out of community college and took this job at Burger King on Flamingo Road in Las Vegas. The graveyard shift, cleaning, prepping orders, taking drive-through. My manager, Carla, was okay with me listening to true crime podcasts in one ear while I worked, so long as I stayed efficient and out of sight. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid rent and allowed me to check on Emily. On Saturday, May 4th, 2024, I signed in at 11 p.m. The store was understaffed. Carla had stepped out for a smoke. The fry cook had clocked out early and the DH had sent someone home sick. It was quiet until about 11:30 p.m., when a few drunk customers rolled through, their laughter echoing off concrete walls. After they left, I flicked off the fluorescent lights over the dining area and stayed near the drive-through window, headphones in, podcast playing low. At 11:36 p.m., I heard a soft thump. The speaker key clicked on, and saw it roll up, a black SUV, no headlights, no engine noise. It glided up to the mic. I leaned in and said, "Welcome to Burger King. May I take your order?" Static. No one said a word. Then a voice, a whisper. "I know you're in there alone, Justin." I froze. My chest felt numb. I yanked one earbud out. Must be a prank, I thought. People do stranger things. Must be someone messing around, recording for laughs. I forced a nervous laugh to myself, tried to play it off. Then the SUV slid forward toward the window. I unlocked it and opened it. No plate, tinted windows, no interior light. The rear passenger window rolled down exactly 1 inch. A camcorder lens poked out, aimed at me. My voice cracked. "Is this some kind of joke?" No answer, just the camera staring. I stumbled back, tried my headset again. Dead. The line to the manager was silent. I looked up. The SUV had vanished. No sound, no tire marks, no engine. Just disappeared. The lot was empty. I waited 5 minutes, called 911 on my cell. The cops came, said it was likely a stolen car or prank, maybe YouTube kids looking for a scare. I left around midnight shaking and told Emily I was okay. I wasn't. I thought it was a one-time thing. A reckless stunt someone pulled on a board Saturday night. I told Carla the next morning. She nodded sympathetically but didn't believe much. Probably kids messing with your order, she said. Don't let it get to you. But I couldn't shake it. The following weekend I clocked in at 11 p.m. Same routine. Voice in my ear. Podcast. Head down at the prep table. I didn't mention the previous incident. Only me, the orders, silence. Then at 11:36 p.m., exactly. I heard the soft thump of the speaker box. I looked up. Nothing. I waited. 10 seconds later, the black SUV glided up. Again, no lights, no noise. Rolled to the speaker. Speaker clicked. I said, "Welcome to Burger King." Static. Then the voice whispered, "Still alone, Justin." My blood ran cold. I didn't respond. I tried to look through the side mirror, but you can't see inside that tinted window. Then the rear window edged down 1 inch. That camcorder lens glinted in the lot lights, just focused on me. I stood frozen. This time I fumbled for my phone to record, but there was nothing behind the window when I glanced back. I tried to film after the car vanished, but my video showed only empty pavement and the dark drive-through. No SUV, no camera, just darkness and silence. I took a deep breath, called Carla. She came back in, fussed me to take a break. I told her I felt sick. She patted my shoulder and said, "We'll cover you next week." I didn't want to come back, but I did. Because rent, because Emily, because I didn't have other options. Then they started appearing. Instagram burner messages, no followers, all accounts created that week. Each message, "You didn't see it yet, but we see you." They began around the same time after the second appearance. I changed my number, but new burner accounts kept messaging the same message. Anonymous. Cold. I started staying extra late after closing to check the camera playback. Nothing. No SUV, no voice, no camcorder eye. Just me talking to empty space asking, "Is anyone there?" My reflection caught in the window looked small and scared. By the third Saturday, I forced myself to record everything. Rear-facing GoPro pointing out into the lot. My phone recording the window. I wore a name tag and stood as still as possible. At 11:36 p.m., the speaker clicked. I said, "First window, drive-through. May I take your order?" I waited. No answer. Then it arrived. SUV glided up. No engine sound. No lights. Rolled to the window. The rear window edged down. But this time, the GoPro caught something. Not the SUV itself, but a shadow, darker than the night, flickering around the edge of frame. I pressed record on my phone too. Static rose in the speaker. The voice came. "We're still here, Justin." My breath hitched. I leaned forward, trying to look inside through mirror reflection. Couldn't see. I backed off. When the window shut, I looked at the phone. 2 seconds of footage. Just empty pavement. No SUV, no shadow. Just me standing, blinking, looking terrified. I tried to show Carla. She frowned. "That's just camera glitch," she said. "Business. People prank. Clean your station. Don't stress. But it wasn't normal. It wasn't prank normal. I started sleeping in the day, waking at night. Heart racing every time I passed a black SUV in parking lots. I stopped watching true crime. I didn't want more triggers. I paid extra attention to my surroundings. Every dark sedan and fast food lots made me tense. Then one day I opened my locker and found a small flash drive. No note. Nothing. Drive-through, Justin face.move. On it was one 5-second clip. Me, from inside the drive-through window looking terrified. You see the speaker, the edge of the counter, my eyes wide. I hold my breath. I mouth something. Maybe, help. No audio. Then the frame goes static and flickers. That's it. No frills, no editing. Just me. I broke. I quit that night. Told Emily I couldn't go back. I changed my number. Deleted social media. Moved into a motel where she'd visit me during the day. I kept the flash drive hidden. Didn't watch it. I couldn't. Weeks passed. I found another job, warehouse, so I turned to evenings only. I thought I'd escaped. But late one night after work, I pulled into a fast food parking lot for a sandwich. I sat in my car and saw it. A black SUV parked ahead, engine off, tinted windows. No lights, no sound. My heart pounded. I rolled up the window, locked the door. Stayed in the car until the SUV pulled away, vanishing like smoke. The street cameras across the road caught nothing but cars, empty spaces, street lamps. Friends stopped hearing from me. I stopped telling Emily about how I felt. I went back to sleeping only at night. But I couldn't shake the fear. Sweat per chicken nuggets, heart jump drives. Because I realized they never needed to be seen to be real. They didn't care about being seen. I moved across the state nearly, changed routines, changed jobs, but I still feel watched. Every silent lot, every car with tinted windows. I flinch, and I hear the whir of the speaker in my nightmares, static turning into whisper. We see you. I know I can't prove what happened. Videos glitch. Cameras show nothing. Police brushed it off as prank. Carla still thinks I overreacted. But I know what happened. I didn't ghost my own mind. I quitted the job to protect myself, but staying alive is sometimes the bravest act. My sister is stable now. Mom is in rehab. I'm rebuilding. But I keep the flash drive secure. I never played it again. At night, I still check the rearview mirrors in cars. I see SUVs with tinted windows and I feel the old dread. But also I feel resolve. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not silent. I changed my number, my job, my city, but I didn't tell my watchers to stop. I told myself to move forward. I learned something. Fear doesn't disappear when you flee, but you can walk away. You don't always need proof to know something is wrong. Sometimes your gut sees what cameras and others can't. Protecting yourself means recognizing danger, even when others shrug it off. You may not understand why or how, but trusting your instinct and walking away can be enough to survive something you can't explain.